Hello, everybody. Good morning. Can we get Billy to play the sound bowl? Get it. Come here. You're funny. I love. Oh, good girl. Billy is back, and I'm so grateful. She got really sick. She had a bladder infection and an eye infection in both eyes. Oh, did that scare you? You're okay. It's okay. It's peacock feathers. This is actually a Reiki wand that I use. I found all of these feathers myself from peacocks, and it has real crystals on it. And I use it when I practice Reiki. And Billy's a Reiki puppy, aren't you, Billy? So we'll put that back, okay? She's not crazy about it. Hi, welcome back. I have been going through a lot with a sick puppy and a lot of other things happening. We've got 2 graduations this week, but I'm determined to get in a better schedule for summer. My son Anthony and I, he's 11, he just turned 11, went on a walk this morning with Billy, huh? Bennett is a psychopath on walks, so he usually stays home. And then we did yoga together, which Anthony was not excited about, but he actually ended up thinking it was pretty fun. 10 minutes of yoga with him felt like an hour. He was not making it easy, but it'll get better, I'm sure. Hi, buddy. This is Bennett. If you don't remember him, he's one of our rescues. Both of these puppies are rescues, and we love them a lot, even though they're crazy, huh? But yeah, Billy was really sick. She just was not eating, and you really just don't even realize how much joy a dog brings into your home. At least I didn't, until her joy was gone, and she didn't jump up when someone came to the door, and she didn't follow me outside to take the trash out, and she wasn't smiling, and it was just heartbreaking. So I'm super grateful to have her back. It was weird. I just had this instinct that she had a bladder infection, and we took her to the vet, and sure enough, she did. So she's doing a lot better. She's got a few more days of her antibiotics, and then she'll be all the way better. Huh, Bennett? You need some love this morning? You always need some love, huh? Huh. Let's see. Today, what's today, Benny? What's today? It's episode 23. So we got some work to do to get 100 by the end of the year, but we're going to do it. So let's cross off our 23. Let's see. What did I want to talk about today? We had Mother's Day. That was exciting. And I did want to talk a little bit about my experience with motherhood in my life. You need your face washed, buddy. Maybe it's bath time. So my sister, Andrea, she has a pretty popular YouTube channel with her husband. It's called The Wheelchair Dad. My brother-in-law, Dan, is a paraplegic, and he and her have created a really beautiful and inspirational YouTube channel. They're on TikTok, they're on Instagram. The Wheelchair Dad, you can look them up, and you'll be happy you did. And she recently on YouTube sent me one of her videos where she is talking about her experience with motherhood. And honestly, it was really emotional for me to listen to, because a lot of it was talking about her early childhood experiences with motherhood, and then her desire to get pregnant for many years. And Andrea has been such a huge support to me through the last 7 months of my life, as we have dealt with an incredible loss. And she's been just a rock for me, along with my other sisters. And I'm super grateful for her. And I was so proud of her for being super brave and telling her story, because it's not easy to tell. We've all been through a lot, and she's been through a lot of grief and a lot of heartache and a lot of trauma in her life. And so you can check that out at The Wheelchair Dad if you want. But it kind of inspired me to share a little bit about my experience with motherhood. She mentioned on her video, and I completely relate, that it's really difficult to tell our story. I've talked to my other sister about this too, where it's just hard to figure out how to share our story. We all kind of have a desire to share everything we've learned from our lives, whether it be through a book or through a YouTube channel or other things, podcasting or whatever. But we feel very protective of the people in our lives, and we don't want to hurt people's feelings, and we don't want to make people feel bad. So as I tell my story with motherhood, I hope that you know that it's with the best intentions of just simply helping others not feel alone, and helping others, inspire others to seek after their own healing, and to let you know that you can overcome any hardship, literally anything. My biggest fear in my entire life came to fruition this past year, last year, October. And I am still here fighting for my happiness and fighting for health and experiencing joy in my life and growing in new ways and evolving. And I just want to help others know that if you're going through a really dark time in your life, the sun always comes up. This universe is all about expansion and contraction and breathing in and breathing out. And, we're not meant to only experience ease. That's not the purpose. Jesus Kate, I know I've said it before, but one of her favorite things to tell me is struggle is the mechanism for growth. And so we have to get out of our comfort zones and go through some struggle in order to evolve and to find our true happiness in life. So when I was born in Alaska. My parents already struggled a ton in their marriage. Both of my parents say that they basically despised each other from the honeymoon on. It's just a weird thing, but they stuck with it for, I think, 11 or 12 years. But that marriage was filled with a lot of ugliness and difficult times and really, really big hardships and trauma for all of us, including them. And I have a ton of compassion for both of them. And, they've both been through their own really difficult things. And today I'm talking about motherhood. So I want to mention that my mother, she went through so many difficult things before we were even born. She is an absolutely beautiful woman. And I always was so proud of how beautiful my mother is. She is Native American and very spiritual. I consider her one of the greatest parts of my spiritual lineage. And she taught us so many things when we were little. She was a wonderful mom when we were really small, up until the time I was about 4 years old. So I don't have a lot of memories of that time. But when I was 4, she went back to some habits that she had had in her earlier years. And because of totally difficult circumstances with my dad, horrible things happening, she went back to drinking alcohol and kind of numbing her pain the best way she knew how. And that spiraled out of control very quickly and led to a lot of really difficult and scary experiences for me and my siblings, and honestly for my parents, I'm sure. And like I said, I have no judgment for either one of them. I love them. I forgive them. I know that we are all human and we are all doing our best, but it was a really difficult and tumultuous childhood for me in those early years. And one of the most wonderful women on the planet, my grandmother, when my parents were going through a divorce, they struggled for many years. And when I was about 8 years old, they decided to divorce. And my dad sent us to live with my grandma. And she was such a source of unconditional love and friendship. And she went out of her way to make us feel comforted and to make memories for us that were super fun and super special. I'm so grateful for her. She became just one of my closest people in my entire life. And anytime I had to write an essay at school about my hero, my grandmother was the very first person who came to mind. And she passed away on January 22nd, a little more than a year ago, year and a half. I don't know, maybe 2.5. I think it was a year and a half ago that she passed away, January 22nd. And, she had struggled quite a bit before that. And so we were all kind of just grateful that she was out of pain. But she was such a good example to me of unconditionally loving her children and loving her grandchildren as if they were her own children. And I'll always be super grateful for her. And when my parents got a divorce, my dad got full custody of us. So there were 4 of us, ages, I believe, like 11 down to age 4. And I was like 8, something like that. She's a growler. Hi, Billy. And the military, my dad was in the Air Force for 22.5 years. So that at that time we got sent to Japan, Misawa, Japan. And to say it was difficult to be without my mother is a total understatement. I was really, really, really sad without my mom. We always had a very special spiritual and emotional connection. We were always telepathic with each other and very in tune with each other. And I cried most nights for my mom during my childhood. It was really, really difficult. But I also knew that she was not in a place where she could properly take care of us. And I was very grateful to my dad for stepping in and doing his very best with his 4 kids, all on his own in this foreign country. And so after my grandmother, the next kind of angel that stepped into our lives was a woman named Sister Newbie. We were Mormon at the time, and most of my family is still Mormon. All of my siblings and parents are still Mormon. And the gods and the universe placed this family literally so that we were sharing a backyard, like right back to back our houses on the base there in Misawa, Japan. And this woman literally took us in like we were her own children. And my sister Andrea, when she was telling about her experiences, said we would have had so many more unhealthy issues and so much more trauma if it had not been for Sister Newbie taking us in as her own. My dad had to go away with the military multiple times, and she would just take care of us, let us stay at her house. We ate so many meals there. We spent every single Sunday afternoon eating Sunday dinner there. And I will be eternally grateful for Sister Newbie. I still call her Sister Newbie, even though I'm not LDS anymore. And she and her husband, Brother Newbie, were just such good friends of ours. Brother Newbie was my dad's good friend, and we were just very, very blessed to have this family placed in our lives, like a family full of angels, and their siblings were our friends. And I'm just super grateful for that. They really showed us an example of what a whole family could look like. And of course, nobody is perfect, and there were all kinds of human things happening, but they set a better example than we had ever seen of a healthier family unit. And because of that example, I really feel like we were able to kind of figure out relationships in our own lives as adults, although it has been a journey for me to figure out how to be in a healthy relationship. And I'm super grateful to be in the relationship I am in. But throughout my entire life, Mormonism definitely just drilled into me, and not just Mormonism, but my dad's beliefs as well. Constantly being reminded that a woman's place is in the home and that a woman should be a stay-at-home mom and all of these things. And so I just dreamt and dreamt and dreamt and dreamt about the mother that I would be. Now, I don't agree with those views anymore. I think a woman's place is exactly where the fuck she wants to be. And it doesn't matter if she wants to work or if she wants to work at home, because stay-at-home moms work harder than anybody on this planet, I swear. But at that time in my life, that was my belief. And not having a mom present in my life, my mom being so far away and only seeing her just a few times after that throughout my childhood, I longed for motherhood. I longed for my mom, and I longed to have babies of my own. And so my aunts were always such good maternal figures to me too. They took care of us in the summer. They made memories for us. My Aunt Callie would send us prom dresses from the United States over to overseas where we were living, because they didn't have any modest dresses for Mormon girls in the stores around where we lived. They were all tank tops, and we weren't allowed to wear tank tops. I just had different standards then and different beliefs then. And they all were very supportive of us. And I'm so grateful for our family and for all the women that were placed in my life that really made a difference for me as I was struggling through not having a mother near me, and also just longing to help my mom. I stressed all the time about how can I help my mom overcome her issues and her problems so that we can be together again. And I felt a great responsibility to help fix the issues that she had. And it took me a lot of years to realize that I can't fix anybody else's issues but my own, and that I have to let people do and be what they are going to do and be. And so that was a hard lesson of my life that I've had to learn. But I went to BYU on a scholarship, and that was just the expectation of me. If I was going to college, I was going to BYU, and I was going to have to figure out how to pay for it myself. And so scholarships were the only way. So school was extremely stressful for me because I knew I had to get really good grades in order to get scholarships to pay for all of my college. And I was able to do that and went off to BYU. And I got married at barely 19. I think it was like, let's see, less than a month, less than 2 weeks after my 19th birthday is when I got married. And I got married in the Mormon temple. And my husband at the time had had a kind of cancer where they told him that he would probably not be able to, create children, which was a very scary thought for me. So the very first week that I was pregnant or not pregnant, but married at age 19, I started calling fertility clinics and saying, please help me get pregnant. What can you do to help me get pregnant? And they basically just laughed at me and said, you have to try for at least a year before, we're willing to intervene and start fertility treatments or any kind of medications or anything. But to my surprise, I was pregnant within 3 months of our marriage on my own with my husband. It was just such a miracle. I was absolutely ecstatic and elated and more terrified than I can even explain. The entire pregnancy, I had dreams where I would leave my baby like under the bus stop bench at a bus stop, and I would get on the bus, and then I would spend my entire dream trying to find my baby, and it was horrible. And I would have dreams that I would forget to feed my baby, and I just had so many fears that were manifesting in my dreams because I didn't feel confident in being a good mom, even though that was the deepest desire of my heart. It was all I ever wanted, was to be a mom. I felt like I was going to absolutely suck at it because I hadn't been around a mom my whole entire life. And so the baby came, Chandler. He's the absolute best, and he was the joy of our lives and still is such a joy to have around, and I'm so grateful for him. And the experience of becoming a mother was so overwhelming and so beautiful. But at the time, I was also deeply, deeply, deeply depressed and struggling with so much trauma that I had never, ever dealt with. And, you know, let's see, when he was born, the picking, my dermatillomania got completely out of control. And that was the very first time I went to a therapist for that issue. And I mentioned on another episode that therapist did not help a lot. She told me to wear rubber bands on my wrist and flick myself hard every time I started picking. And then that did not work. It just made the problem worse. And so then she tried to have me have gloves on all the time, which was absolutely just not practical at all. And so motherhood was everything I ever wanted to be. And at the same time, all of a sudden, I was at home with this baby with all the expectations that Mormon moms have on them to cook and clean and take care of the children. And it was 100% on me, or at least that's how I felt. And it was extremely overwhelming and very difficult for me. And in my little heart, I started to have desires of like, man, I want to start a business. I want to, have a career, but that was just not an option for me. I remember mentioning that to several people in my family and that being shot down very quickly, or feeling total disappointment from the people in my life who just wanted me to stay at home with my children. And, looking back, I'm super grateful for all the time that I had with my children at home. I have been a stay-at-home mom most of their childhood, with the exception of a few years of working part-time jobs and a little bit of full-time work. Mostly, I was able to stay at home, which is something that so many moms long to be able to do, and they are not able to do that. And I have compassion for that. I just hope that every woman will stop listening to the influences around them and just do what you feel best about in your heart, because there are many ways to love your children, many ways to take care of a home, many ways to take care of your family and to be in a partnership. And there's just not one right way, in my opinion. But my sisters were a huge help to me. My two older sisters were really very much struggling with infertility and wanting to have a baby of their own. They had been married longer than I had, and they were not able to conceive. And it was hard for me to feel like I was having babies when they wanted babies, but they were always so gracious, so helpful, and they were the world's best aunties to my children. They were like other mothers to my children. I remember when Chandler was born, my oldest sister, came over, and she would spend so many nights literally staying up all night so that I could sleep. I was having to pump every bottle, and it was extremely painful. I got mastitis multiple times, had to be hospitalized. It's a really difficult time. And Bryn would come over and rock Chandler and hold him and take care of him so that I could rest. And she would clean my house. During my entire pregnancy, she would come over every Friday and bring healthy ingredients to make me a healthy meal. I mean, my sisters are just phenomenal. And they've always been such beautiful aunts to my kids too. And I'm so grateful for them. And then eventually they were able to have, children of their own through all different kinds of, in vitro and adoption and biological children. And we just have a really beautiful family made up of all kinds of personalities and humans that I love so much. I wish we lived closer to my one sister, Andrea, who has 6 children, but they came and visited recently. It was really fun. But my sister Bryn lives close to me, and we're able to see each other more often, and I'm super grateful for that as well. Anyway, after Chandler, I wanted to get pregnant again. I was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis, And they told me not to have any more children, but I was absolutely determined to have one more because I absolutely just didn't feel good about having Chandler be an only child. I really wanted to have at least one more. And the doctors were telling me it's not a good idea. It's way too much on your body. But I immediately started trying to get pregnant anyway. And I got pregnant. We were living in California at the time. And at 13 weeks, I was already showing. It was crazy because my body had already been pregnant. I was in maternity clothes. And we went to hear the heartbeat, and the heartbeat was not there. And I was absolutely devastated. And we were living in California on our own. And so that was a really, really difficult thing for me to go through. I had to have a DNC, and I felt like for the next week I was in labor. It was horrible. I had tons of contractions and bleeding and discomfort, and then grieving that loss as well. It was a really difficult time. And I remember my sister Bryn driving all the way out to California to be with me and to bring comfort and love and support. And I could go on and on and on about my sisters and all the way they've been there for me. And I'm so grateful. But I was able to get pregnant about maybe 6 months after that, maybe 4, I don't know. And little Thomas came to us, and my husband at the time and I both at the exact same time in different places had a spiritual experience that helped us know that Thomas's name was Thomas. And at the time, I was not thrilled. I didn't like the name Thomas. It felt like an old man name. But Jake came home to me, and I told him about my experience, and he's like, "Oh my gosh, you're never going to believe, but I had an experience in the car today where I knew that our baby's name was supposed to be Thomas." And Jake's dad's middle name is Thomas, and I absolutely love Jake's dad, Thomas's grandpa. And so I'm super grateful that he carries that name. And his name absolutely fit him when he arrived. I love the name Thomas now. I'm obsessed. I never wanted anyone to call him Tom. I just wanted him to go by Thomas. But in his older years, when he became, 14, 15, 16, people started calling him Tom and Tom Tom. And now I love the name Tom Tom too. Tom, he's just the best. Then Anna came along, and Anna was totally spiritually seen by me. I was in the Mormon temple, and Thomas was only 8, almost 9 months old. And I was sitting in the Mormon temple, and I had a total vision of Anna. And I knew that I was going to need to get pregnant again. And I was terrified because I thought Thomas would be my last baby because my health was declining and I was really struggling with multiple sclerosis. But I saw that little baby, and I absolutely knew that it was time to bring her down. And so when Thomas was 9 months old, I conceived Anna. I was still nursing Thomas and became pregnant with Anna, and I knew exactly what she would look like. And I was so excited and terrified to have a girl and to be outnumbered with 3. I was really, really worried about having a girl because I've never been able to relate to girls very much. I was raised by a man, and I was friends with mostly boys in high school. And so I was scared, but Anna came, and she was an absolute angel baby. Literally on night 1 from coming home from the hospital, she slept through the night. She made my life so much easier than I thought it was going to be with 3 children. She was an absolute joy and still is such a joy to have around. Then when Anna was around 8, almost 9 months old, I was in the temple again. I went to the Mormon temple a lot. It was a place of solitude and comfort and peace and stillness for me, and I absolutely loved it. I actually really miss going to the Mormon temple, but you have to be a member and you have to follow their standards of worthiness, like paying 10% of your income and not drinking coffee and not drinking tea and, following the guidelines of the Mormon church to be able to go there. So I can't go there anymore. But when I was in that Mormon temple, I saw a little boy with brown hair and blue eyes, and I absolutely knew that it was time to get pregnant again. And I freaking could not believe it, because I I just kept thinking that this would be my last baby. Even though I wanted a big family, I wanted a lot of children, I was terrified for my health. And because I wanted to be there for the children I already had, and every child we added to that made it a little bit more scary. But Jonah came along, and he was the most joyful, colorful, beautiful, smart, fun baby you could have ever hoped for. All of my babies have been such a joy, and so precious and so powerful and so beautiful. And they still are just such joyful, beautiful, intelligent, creative, colorful, loving beings. And I'm so grateful for them. They're the best, and they've been my greatest teachers on this earth. They've taught me and helped me grow, and they've forgiven me, and they've been patient with me. And I'm just so grateful. And so Jonah came along and brought so much joy. I mean, he is just a little firecracker. He's so brilliant and so funny. He was just making us all laugh hysterically by the time he was before 2. At 18 months, he was talking in full sentences. He's just so awesome. And then I decided to leave the Mormon church when Jonah was 2 years old. I did a lot of research, and it was the scariest decision I had ever made in my entire life. I did a lot of research. I read books that were, Mormon published, but about the history of the Mormon church, and really struggled with a lot of aspects that I did not know about, and I felt a deep obligation to my family to follow my heart. And with Jake, we decided together to leave the LDS church, and that was a very difficult time. Our families were very, 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 very disappointed in us, and they voiced it quite a bit, which for me, I'm very sensitive, and to disappoint my loved ones, my grandmother, my mom, my dad, my siblings, it was my aunts, it was very difficult for me. But it was such a healthy decision for our family. I'm so grateful that we are where we are. And shortly after that, my marriage had been suffering through all of my having children, through all of the joy that our children brought to us. Jake and I always had a really great friendship. I had been friends with him since 14 years old, and we always laughed together. We never screamed and yelled and fought with each other, but there were some really difficult things in our marriage that I just could not reconcile and could not deal with anymore. Plus, I was struggling with, my sexuality secretly. I had never admitted, even to myself, that I was attracted to women, that I needed to grow and explore and to live, and to figure out who I was. I had never even figured out who I was other than a Mormon and a mom, And so 3 months, I believe, after leaving the Mormon church, I decided to leave my marriage. And then my family probably really thought I went off the deep end, because first I was leaving the one and only true church, and then I left my family, and I had not been open with my family about the issues in my marriage, because I believed in, protecting us as a partnership and not gossiping or talking negatively about, my husband or whatever. And looking back, Jake and I have had a lot of good conversations where we've just had to really apologize to each other and make amends and have compassion for the other's experience. And I love Jake so much. He's one of my dearest, most loyal, most wonderful friends. And His wife, Tiff, is one of the most beautiful, wonderful women in my entire world. I love her so much. And all of us just co-parent now together. And I'm so grateful for the dynamics that we ended up having in our family. Now my children have 4 parents who love them, who fight for them, who look out for them. We have parenting meetings where we discuss them. We have family meetings with our children where we talk about their growth and development. And I'm just so grateful that we can co-parent together. So I left my marriage, and about 6 months after leaving my marriage on December 10th, 2011, I met my soulmate, AJ, and I will forever be grateful for that day. We were at a poker night at a mutual friend's house, and he walked in, and I thought he was so freaking cute and handsome. And he was so kind, and he had such gentle energy, but he was edgy and funny too. He was cracking jokes, making me laugh so hard. And he was not drinking that night because he had his kids at home. And I just admired that so much. And I don't know, we fell in love very, very quickly. But even through all of that, I still had not admitted my sexuality to myself. I had not realized that I need to explore these parts of myself. So it has been a big journey for AJ and I to get to where we are today. We have fought really hard for the happiness that we have. And he is the most unconditionally loving, supportive, patient human on the planet. And I am just so grateful for his love and his example and his partnership. He's the best. But let's see, about maybe a year after we met or something, I'm not really good with timelines, but we decided that we wanted to have a baby and together. And AJ has 2 children from his marriage. So I had 2 stepkids and my 4 babies. And we loved each other so much. And we knew that we were going to have a baby boy. There was no doubt in our mind that there was a little baby boy that was meant to come down to our family. And I remember going to Albuquerque and visiting my best friend, Christopher, and we were getting pedicures together. And I said, I think AJ and I are going to try and have another baby. And he told me I was crazy. And I agreed and still said, I think we're going to do it. And shortly thereafter, we were pregnant. And to have a pregnancy with your soulmate is such a beautiful experience. AJ was so patient and loving and kind and helpful during my pregnancy and my natural labor. Oh my God, he was a hero and a champion. He's the best. And Anthony was brought into our life. We named him Anthony Christopher because AJ's name is Anthony and my best friend's name is Christopher. And he has been such a joy to our entire family. And I'm so thankful. He just kind of tied the bow to all of this dysfunction and love and chaos. And he is just so much fun. He just turned 11 and he's the joy of our lives, just like all of our other children. And our children as siblings are so good to each other. They're so kind and supportive, and they're each other's best friends. And they do not disclude Anthony from that. They include him and take him to do things. And he's just so loved. And I'm so very grateful. And Billy is Anthony's best friend, and Anthony is Billy's best friend. It's the cutest. Their friendship is the cutest. So motherhood has been something that has been the greatest blessing I could ever hope for in my life. And learning to find myself through motherhood, since I had children starting out when I was 19, has probably caused them. I mean, I know it's caused my children so much heartache because I have put them through a lot trying to find myself and figure out who I am. But in that process, I hope that I've taught them to don't be afraid to go on your journey and figure out who you are and figure out what you need in your life. And don't stop until you figure it out. Don't settle, don't compromise just your own happiness for anything or anyone. There's a way to to love your family and love your children without sacrificing yourself. You know, my very favorite book used to be The Giving Tree by Shel Silverstein. And in that book, this tree gives and gives and gives and gives and gives of itself to this boy as he grows up into an old man. And by the end of the book, this tree is left to nothing but a stump. I don't know if you can hear Billy groan, but she loves to groan. And I used to look at myself as that tree. I thought it was my purpose in life to give of myself and give and give and sacrifice until I was nothing but a stump. And now I've realized that the most useful trees are the ones who care for themselves and set boundaries. They allow you to eat their apples or use their branches for a nest. But if there is a danger, they're going to fight it off. You know, when trees have like a poisonous beetle coming up and infesting them, they will literally emit substances that will kill those beetles. And then they will send messages through the mycelia that send messages to all the other trees around saying, you need to produce this chemical too, to fight off the beetles. They're not just going to be eaten alive like that. They protect themselves as they offer comfort and nourishment and love to all of the beings around them. And so now my goal in life is to be the healthiest, happiest, well cared for tree and mother that I can be, so that I can show up happy and joyful and healthy for my children. And I hope that they always put themselves and their health and happiness first too, because everyone around you benefits when you are happy. You know, we think of success in this country, especially, as who has the nicest car, who has the best job, who has the most money, who has the most followers on Instagram or TikTok or whatever. But I hope that we move more into a place as a society where we gauge success as, how happy am I? If I am not happy and I have the fanciest car and the nicest job, what is it even good for? I want us to be willing to step into discomfort, to go through the trenches, you know, to find and to dig and to figure out what really makes us happy and who we really are. And that requires some discomfort. But I believe that the most successful we can be is happy. And I believe, because Jesus Kate has told me so many times, that what makes you happy is your purpose in life. She says, your passion is your purpose. And so we slave away trying to do the jobs that our parents told us we should do, or that society, you know, tells us you need to be this to make your family proud. No, fuck it. Do what you want. Throw it all away and start over if that's what you feel you need to do. Because I believe that just like in nature, the happiest trees are the most fruitful trees. The happiest us is the most fruitful us. And that will be all the success you ever need. Maybe for some person, that means living in the middle of the forest or living in an apartment somewhere instead of a big mansion. It doesn't matter. We just have skewed our views of what successful is. But really, when it comes down to, what does any of it mean if we're not happy? So there's my little rant. I wanted to share a quote by Rumi. How long are we getting? We're getting kind of long. So I'll just share this and be done for the day. But Rumi says, the wound is the place where light enters you. The wound is the place where light enters you. We cannot grow if we don't get uncomfortable. You know, we spend our lives trying to avoid hurt, avoid heartbreak, protect ourselves from pain. But the pain is where we grow, and the pain is where we learn, if we're willing to really face it and walk through it and not avoid. So I would just challenge all of us to figure out, what do I need today to be more healthy and happy? What do I need? And don't be afraid to go after that with everything in you. I love you. Jesus Kate loves you. Billy loves you. Benny loves you. You are not alone no matter how hard it gets. Please don't give up. I hope you have a wonderful day, and I will see you next time. Namaste.